Dear father, a whisper of a mother may reach thine ears. Mine utterance quavered, feeble as the whispering zephyrs that dance through the narrow crevice of the portal. Mine throat did constrict, each utterance escaping with great toil, as though I were striving to contain a tempest poised to erupt. Mine heart did race within my breast, as though it sought to break free, whilst mine hands did clutch the blanket with an unbidden fervor. My breath, once a tumultuous whisper, now found a steady rhythm, unbroken and serene. Each faint whisper in the still chamber caused my heart to falter, filled with dread that the hidden truth might be unveiled to the world. Greetings, one and all. Today, I don the mantle of Maya. Allow me to unfold before thee a tale, a narrative I once believed should remain shrouded in secrecy, never to grace the light of day again. The most sorrowful truth is that the blame for this tale rests upon my shoulders. Verily, 'tis a tale that appears most improbable, one that could only unfold upon the silver screen. Yet, it did unfold in the tapestry of mine own existence. Though I yearn to cast aside the shadows of yore, they linger still, etching themselves upon my thoughts, tormenting me with their relentless presence each passing day. Alas, I fear I shall never find the means to amend my transgressions, nor shall I attain solace with the soul I have grievously wronged. The scars I inflicted were not solely of the heart, but also the faith that hath been shattered. No matter the fervor of my efforts, I found myself unable to undo the deeds I had wrought. In a quaint abode nestled within the charming hamlet of Carmel by the sea, I dwell, a fair maiden under the watchful gaze of my progenitors. California, a tranquil realm adorned with verses of beauty. Mine own progenitor, Alex, doth preside over a renowned establishment of the sea's bounty within this fair locale. He doth ever tend to his corporeal form with great care and finds delight in frequenting the gymnasium. Though he hath approached the age of 50, his form remaineth toned and robust, appearing far younger than the years he doth carry. He is robust and resolute, yet ever tender in his dealings with me. Mine own mother, Sarah, doth teach the noble art of literature at the high school that lies close to our abode. She doth possess a gentle spirit, delicate in nature, and hath a profound affection for the timeless works of classical literature. Each eve, she doth oft take her place by the window, perusing tomes beneath the gentle glow, ever mindful to bestow upon me counsel and profound affection. My mother, a guiding star, imparted the wisdom of living with sincerity and emotion, nurturing my spirit from the tender days of childhood to the more complex realms of adulthood. Ever have I been enveloped in the tender affection of those two, who have pledged their very souls to nurture and safeguard my being. In my tender years, upon the return of my father from his daily toil, I would hasten forth, flinging myself into his embrace, my small arms encircling his neck, holding him with fervent affection. To mine own heart, my father hath ever been the most steadfast and secure refuge, as though merely dwelling within his embrace, all would be well. I gave it little thought. In that moment, a profound sense of security and affection enveloped me. I was likewise a free-spirited maiden who cherished the new and the fair. In sooth, I did oft select for mine own self the fairest and most resplendent garments that I possessed. Akin to that, to my progenitors I would hasten, twirling in joyous abandon, eagerly anticipating their praises, for their affection enveloped me like a warm embrace. Mine progenitors did ever beam, their gazes rich with admiration and esteem. Those sweet praises, so unadorned, did fill my heart with joy, rendering me the most blissful maiden in all the realm. Upon the conclusion of our evening repast, as the entire kin assembled before the glowing visage of the television, I found solace in perching upon my father's knee. He did oft embrace me in his gentle hold. Those embraces were tender and soothing. From my tender years, I was indulged to such an extent that it forged a habit most difficult to sever. Even as I ventured into adulthood, in the manner of yore, I found solace upon my father's knee, as though I were but a tender child, yearning for the warmth of affection and the sanctuary of his embrace. That custom was to me a tether, a modest delight that I yearned never to forsake. Yet of late, whenever I did perch upon my father's knee or dashed forth to embrace him, the sensation was not as it once was. There was a peculiar essence in his response that I found myself unable to ignore. Yet mark, he hath ceased to embrace my affections, as it was in times of yore. Instead, there came a moment of stillness. At times, his embrace would constrict with a fervor beyond the ordinary. The gaze of my father upon me had transformed, no longer merely embodying the tender affection and comforting warmth of a paternal love for his offspring. There were moments when I could distinctly perceive the bewilderment in his gaze, as though he concealed a truth that eluded my grasp in such instances. Mine heart doth quicken, as though some inner voice doth whisper of impending doom. Yet I am loath to accept such a grim fate. Perchance I ponder too deeply. Perchance it is but a fleeting sentiment. Yet, regardless of the circumstance, this peculiarity clings to my being, imparting a sense that matters have grown far more intricate than they once were. As I have oft declared, my father doth take great delight in the pursuit of exercise. Thus, despite the passage of years, he doth still possess a robust and elegant form, reminiscent of his youthful days. He is not merely a sire, but a paragon of fortitude and grace, a figure I have long held in esteem. Upon gazing upon my father, I cannot but acknowledge his enduring handsomeness. With shoulders broad and a physique well defined, each time he doth pass by, a tender affection stirs within me, an enigmatic sentiment that eludes precise definition. Perchance it was the assurance he radiated, or the formidable presence of my sire that still hearkened back to my youthful days when he was the very essence of my universe. Yet of late, that sentiment hath taken a turn most peculiar. It was not merely the reverence of a daughter for her sire, but rather a nebulous, ineffable sentiment that lingered in the air. As I gazed upon my father, I lingered in my observation more than is customary, and in his presence, an unfamiliar stirring within me did arise. Upon a day like any other, I returned from my studies, and lo, my father had already graced our abode with his presence. He would oft return home ere my mother, and thereupon take his seat upon the sofa, gazing at the flickering images upon the screen, his gaze fixed upon the luminous display. Upon my entrance, there he remained, serene and known, without a trace of doubt. Though I had reached the age of maturity, I found myself dashing towards him, as if all was as it should be. Imbued with a sense of ease and familiarity, I leapt upon him, taking my seat upon his lap as in the days of my youth. Without a moment's hesitation, my father embraced me as he oft did. Yet this occasion bore a peculiar air of distinction. The embrace lingered with warmth, yet the air betwixt us had shifted, rendering my spirit less at ease than it had been prior. Yet, I endeavored to cast aside the sentiment, whispering to my own heart that it was not but a figment of fancy. Yet it proved to be more than a mere transient emotion. As I perched upon my father's knee, a curious sensation didst brush against me, awakening my senses. In the beginning, I endeavored to dismiss it, convincing myself that it was merely the awkward posture in which I found myself. Or perchance it was an object concealed within his pocket. Yet as I lingered, the truth unfurled before me, a spectre that demanded my attention. Mine heart did quicken its pace, and lo, the air grew thick and laden with an unfamiliar weight. In a moment most perplexing, I found myself ensnared in uncertainty, unsure of the path to tread. The intimacy that once wrapped me in a cloak of security now cast a shadow of disquiet and discomfort upon my heart. I remained motionless, striving to maintain my composure. Yet unvoiced inquiries stirred within my breast. My father's gaze held a quietude, a reticence akin to my own. In silence we lingered, ensnared by the oppressive air, until the sudden entrance of mother shattered the stillness. Though I yearned to rise, mine limbs seemed bound, rendered powerless to stir. Father uttered not a word, yet his gaze upon me spoke volumes, revealing the depths of his thoughts through his eyes. The once familiar warmth of yesteryears now eludes my grasp. Lo, in an instant, the echo of the door's opening did resound. My mother entered, shattering the heavy silence that hung in the air. We both averted our gazes in haste, and I rose swiftly, striving to maintain an air of composure. Yet the peculiar sensation lingered, pressing upon my heart, akin to a thing that could ne'er revert to its former state. Though all appeared as it should, within me stirred a palpable shift. Mine own father appeared to take greater interest in my well-being. He frequently inquired regarding my attentiveness to the minutiae of my existence, which had previously escaped his notice. He commenced bestowing upon me garments and trinkets of which I had not expressed a desire. Those offerings bewildered me in the beginning, yet as time unfolded, I came to discern that this affection had transcended the bounds of paternal love. On a fateful day, when the veil that separated my essence from that of my father was irrevocably torn asunder, it became a moment etched in the annals of my memory, never to be forgotten. On that fateful day, my mother embarked upon a journey for her business, compelled by the school's proposal, thus leaving my father and me to dwell in solitude within our abode. Upon my return from the halls of learning, I did cross the threshold of my abode, and lo, before mine eyes unfolded a most unforeseen tableau upon the dining table. Mine own father didst prepare a feast most splendid. The ambiance within the dwelling shifted most unexpectedly, taking on a hue of romance. The flickering candlelight danced softly. The aroma of the feast wafted enticingly, and notably, 2 bottles of crimson wine graced the table, awaiting their moment to shine. Mine astonishment could not be concealed. Mine eyes did widen as I beheld my father, and did laugh with mirth. What doth weigh upon thy mind this day? I remained convinced it was merely a fortuitous happenstance, a delightful surprise, devoid of any inkling of a more profound truth lurking beneath. My father, with his customary grin, did declare that he bore tidings of joy from the tavern, a triumph he wished to commemorate. In that moment of contentment, I felt a joy that needed no further inquiry. I simply yearned to savor this repast with my father. We gathered round the table, partaking in sustenance and libations in harmonious company. The nectar of the vine did cascade with grace within the chalices. The gentle glow of the candlelight cast a tender warmth upon the scene, rendering it more intimate than ever before. At that moment, naught seemed amiss within my heart. All appeared exceedingly ordinary, all too well known. Yet from this intimate embrace, there emerged a significance, an emotion that eluded my ability to articulate. We partook of our meal and shared confidences, reminiscing about tales from my youth, when I was the small maiden ever attached to my father. Fond recollections and gentle jests filled the air, bringing forth laughter from us both, as if the burdens of yore had dissolved into the ether. Joyful mirth resounded within the cozy chamber, and the air betwixt us felt more intimate than ever before. Upon the conclusion of 2 bottles of the fermented grape, I sensed the merry intoxication beginning to take hold of my senses. Mine thoughts were clouded, the spirits did obscure all sense. We drew nigh, our proximity heightened, and I know not whether it was the spirits that emboldened us or some other force at play. Yet, lo, a query did escape my lips, one I had not foreseen would take flight. Dost thou hold affection for me? I inquired with a gentle tone, yet no longer in the innocence of youth, beseeching a paternal figure. That inquiry was not the naive utterance of a youth, but bore a weighty significance, as though I were probing from a vantage wholly distinct, a vantage my clear-headed reason would never permit me to voice. My sire paused in silence for a brief spell. Then he didst turn to gaze upon me, his eyes profound and contemplative, as though he were probing the very depths of my soul. Then he did respond, his voice imbued with warmth. Indeed, a solitary word, yet it bore weight and was laden with unspoken significance. In that fleeting instant, our gazes met, entwined in silent understanding. The air hung heavy, as if time itself had paused in our midst. It was no longer the bond of sire and offspring, but a connection transcending all bounds I had ever perceived. In that fleeting instant, the motives that stirred within me remain a mystery. Perchance it was the spirits that led to such folly. Perchance it was the feelings that had lain dormant for an age untold. In silence, no utterance escapes the lips. With tender affection, I embraced my father's neck, drawing him close in a moment of warmth. An odd sensation took hold of my entire being, yet I pressed on, my thoughts silenced and my resolve unwavering. In that fleeting instant, I found myself utterly bereft of self-control. My father didst pause for a fleeting moment, yet soon he did return my embrace, his arms encircling my waist, holding me ever tighter. The chasm that once lay betwixt us hath vanished into naught. We gazed upon one another, our eyes entwined in a lingering moment, as though the need for further utterance had vanished into the ether. We appeared to grasp one another's unspoken musings, as if our minds danced in silent accord. We did exchange gentle kisses, slow and measured at the outset, as though we were unearthing a long-lost affection. Yet, after but a fleeting moment, the doubt did vanish, yielding to a fervent and all-consuming sensation. Our embraces grew ever more fervent, not merely to draw nearer, but as if we sought to clutch this fleeting instant for all eternity. Mine heart did race within my breast, and I felt the gentle warmth of my sire's form, causing all else to fade into naught. Mine father did commence to softly caress my back. His hands did wander o'er each contour, each sigh. The tender beginnings did slowly yield to a yearning embrace, as though my father found himself unable to master the surging passion within. His fingers traversed each contour of my form, both tentative and ravenous, as though he sought to uncover every secret, leaving no stone unturned. Each caress, each delicate motion sent a thrill through me, as though my very flesh was attuned to his every action. My sire did lift me with both tenderness and strength, his robust embrace encircling me as though he wished never to release his grasp. I did entwine my arms about his neck, perceiving the quickened rhythm of our breaths intertwining. He strode forth with unwavering resolve, guiding me into the chamber where darkness reigned, save for the faint glimmer that crept in from the world beyond. In this instant, we were unmindful of all else. Neither the passage of time nor the vastness of space mattered, for our hearts were entwined, as though the very world had ceased to turn. All musings vanished, leaving naught but a fervent yearning, a profound bond that eluded the grasp of language. Mine father did lay me upon the bed, and our lips did meet once more, entwining in tender yet fervent kisses, as though we were bound by an unbreakable bond. I could sense his fervent breath entwined with the swift cadence of my heart. His hands didst commence their deft ballet, unfastening my garment with a deliberate grace, each button yielding to his gentle caress. The sensation of bareness arose not solely from the garments shedding from my form, but also from the exposure of our innermost selves that we both laid bare. That sensation did grip my heart with a tightness, yet concurrently, all doubts did fade away like mist before the sun. On that eve, we didst refrain from concealing aught. All constraints, all hesitations were shattered, as though the universe had been reduced to naught but the two of us. Each gesture, each tender touch bore a significance profound, as though we sought to etch the essence of one another into the very fabric of our souls and forms. We bestowed upon one another all that we possessed, not merely the union of our bodies, but also the intertwining of our souls, revealing the long-buried yearnings that had lingered in the shadows. On that eve, we both perceived that all confines had vanished, leaving naught but the sheer essence of one another in that singular instant. The morrow, when my mother did return to our abode, all appeared to have resumed its customary state. My sire and I did comport ourselves with utmost normalcy, both exchanging smiles and engaging in light discourse, as though naught of import had transpired on the eve prior. Mine own mother perceived not the shift in the air around us. All proceeded in the customary manner. We did partake in the morning repast, engaging in discourse of mundane matters, as a typical family might. Yet within my heart, I was acutely aware that we both bore the weight of unspoken truths that lingered in the air. Though our outward semblance remained unaltered, a profound silence did descend betwixt my father and me. Each glance, each movement bore a distinct significance, as though we were partaking in a clandestine understanding, hidden from the eyes of the world. Though we were aware of the folly in our actions, we pressed on with our clandestine gatherings, swift and secretive, deepening the strife betwixt remorse and yearning. We were aware of the folly in our actions, yet neither of us harbored the desire to cease each tender caress. Each glance conveyed that our journey would persist in silence, devoid of vows. On a certain eve, whilst my mother lay in slumber deep, my father did stealthily enter my chamber, his presence unannounced and silent as the night itself. In slumber's embrace, I remained, blissfully ignorant of my father's presence beside me. As I stirred from slumber, The unexpected embrace enveloping me did indeed cause a stir of surprise within my breast. As I didst turn mine head with a gentle motion, I didst perceive his well-known visage nigh unto me. A fleeting moment of astonishment did grace the air, yet soon my lips did bend into a tender smile, and I embraced my father with utmost gentleness. In that fleeting instant, all else faded from my mind, leaving naught but my father and I tenderly urging him to tread with care. Mother shall not lend her ear, I did softly utter, my voice quaking like the frigid breeze that doth seep through the fissure in the portal. Each utterance proved a challenge, as though I were striving to contain a tempest brewing within, poised to erupt forth. Mine throat was constricted, yet mine heart did beat with a fervent irregularity within my breast. Mine hands did grasp the blanket with fervor, striving to quell the quaking that coursed through my very being. My breath came forth in labored gasps, as though each inhalation were ensnared by a shadowy dread. The chamber lay in an eerie stillness. The faintest murmur or rustle or breath set my heart aflutter, filled with dread that this clandestine affair, our daring romance, might be laid bare before the eyes of others, unveiling all that we endeavored to conceal. The dread of revelation did slowly transform into an all-consuming passion. Yet I found myself unable to utter the word, nay. Each time my father arrived, I discerned my entrapment in this bond, powerless to extricate myself, despite the foreknowledge of its tragic conclusion. At last, the fateful day I had sought to evade did arrive. As if summoned by the very heavens, mine own mother did summon me to convey that an unforeseen matter hath arisen. She found herself unable to return to her abode as she had intended, and thus would not grace it with her presence until the morrow's light. A fleeting wave of solace washed over me and my father as we entertained the notion that our evening would remain undisturbed. We felt no concern, believing that ample time remained until the dawn's light graced the morrow. Lo, my mother hath returned with haste, sooner than I had anticipated. In our heedless state, we were caught unawares, failing to perceive her entrance as she stood before that tableau. Her silence spoke volumes, and in that moment, I grasped the depths of our unraveling. The entire realm appeared to crumble before her gaze, and in that fleeting instant, all was undone. I found myself ensnared, my voice rendered mute. Mine own father did likewise remain motionless, bereft of a plausible pretext. The air within the dwelling was thick with a weighty gloom, a palpable tension that brooked no space for compassion or understanding. Upon my mother beholding the dreadful verity, she uttered not a single word, but with a heavy heart, departed the abode in silence. The air within the dwelling grew still, as if time itself had come to a halt. All that transpired betwixt my sire and I turned peculiar, laden with an oppressive weight and an ineffable sense of shame. We found ourselves at a loss for words and actions alike. In the end, the hidden truths lay bare for all to behold. The days that followed were shrouded in a weighty stillness. Mine own mother hath not returned to our abode, and at length, she hath sought the dissolution of our union. Mine progenitors have chosen to dissolve the union that I once believed to be impervious to the ravages of time. The abode lay desolate and frigid, compelling me to confront the remnants of a family that once basked in joy. In a tempest of turmoil, I found myself adrift, uncertain of the path to tread betwixt my sire and dam. In sooth, I found myself at a loss as to what path to take. Mine own progenitor, once the pillar of my strength, hath now transformed into the very wellspring of mine undoing. Mine own mother, who hath cherished and nurtured me since my tender years, now stands afar, wounded and burdened with an unending sorrow in her breast. Upon reflection, I discerned that my misguided passions and frailties had wrought consequences beyond repair. Mine entire kin hath been shattered by decisions I ne'er imagined would bring forth such a fate. The harm did not merely touch my mother, but also ensnared my father and myself, leading us to forfeit the bonds of love and trust that once united us. At last, I grasped that all confines and kinship ties must be honored once they have been transgressed. There exists no path to retreat. Affection, regardless of its fervor, doth not mend grievous errors of the past. At this moment, I find myself at a pivotal juncture, uncertain of the path ahead or the company I shall keep upon my return. Alas, I find myself in a quandary, uncertain if I can stand before my progenitors, and I ponder whether they still hold a space for me in the tapestry of their existence. The kin I once cherished now lingers as a sorrowful recollection, and the road that lies before me remains shrouded in uncertainty. Alas, I am but a soul burdened with the weight of my own deeds, seeking a path to confront the repercussions of my actions and to endure this anguish for all eternity. Though I anticipate the scorn of many who shall deem my actions beyond pardon, I find solace in the acceptance of their judgment. I perceive that each soul doth possess their own perspective, and I stand prepared to embrace the gaze of all discerning minds. The paramount matter lies in my audacity to confront my verity, embracing the anguish and repercussions of the errors I have wrought. My parting counsel to thee, dear listeners of this tale, is to remain ever vigilant and uphold thy boundaries in all relations, particularly within the family circle. At times, the fervor of affection and intimacy may cloud our judgment, guiding us towards choices we never envisioned ourselves embracing. Each deed doth bear its fruits, and there exist errors that, once wrought, can ne'er be mended, leaving naught but sorrow and scars that endure through the ages. Let not fleeting passions obscure thy judgment. Let not frailty lead thee down roads of remorse that shall haunt thy days henceforth. Honor the limits set forth. Safeguard affection and faith within the kin, for when such bonds are sundered, the path to restoration is forever lost. At times, we are granted but a singular opportunity to safeguard that which holds the utmost significance. And should we falter, the anguish that follows shall be a burden most heavy to bear. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all who have lent their ears to my tale. If thou dost find the tale of import, I beseech thee to lend thy support by bestowing a like and subscribing to the channel, that thou mayest not miss the forthcoming narratives. Gratitude I extend, and until we meet once more, farewell.